Hello, this is my video response to Red Dice Diaries when he asked in early July, what three things do we look for when we are looking at a new role-playing system? The first of the three things that I look for is the philosophy of magic, assuming this is a system that has magic. My idea of magic is that it is a power that a character can manipulate. That means that this casting may be limited by a PowerPoint mechanic of some type or a stamina point system that is also tied to normal physical exertion, or even, depending on the setting, that it's limitless. A lot of the limitless ones will have some kind of skill test that they have to perform to cast the spell, and so it's more of a question of limiting through skill ceiling and the randomness of the dice. What it cannot be is a preset number of spells that the caster needed to choose some arbitrary time well in advance. That exclusion does not exclude ritual spells that take a lot of preparation and hours upon hours of casting. This does not preclude spell systems where casting a spell is not an instantaneous or near instantaneous action. If casting a spell takes 20 seconds from start to finish, that's fine. But it is not a weapon that you put an ammo clip in the beginning of the day and then decide to pull out and fire later whenever you feel like. Your choices are not locked in. There is an interesting dynamic that happens when you have to make those kinds of decisions ahead of time. But that to me feels more like a mechanic that fits in a roguelite video game and not putting a character into a world that has a setting and that has some kind of physics and supernatural system. One could clearly write one, but I'm not interested in it. Point number two that I look for is the character advancement mechanics. I prefer that advancement is full of choices. There are some systems where you can level up, if that is the appropriate term, a character in a matter of 5 minutes or less. And that doesn't necessarily take a large amount of system mastery because leveling up is a function of looking up values on a table and erasing and writing new ones on your character sheet. That's not interesting. Not only is that not interesting, it leaves all the distinctions between characters of the same archetype, whatever name the system uses, are strictly character background decisions. Where are you from? What's your history? Those are all important things. I want them but I want differences represented in the system as well. I want to see the ability for a PC group of 5 players to all pick fighter and have completely different characters. I also prefer advancement systems that have some kind of representation of the skills that they've used in skill development. Two systems that have done that well in my limited experience, Call of Cthulhu did. I was a player in a 2-session, a lot of twos, in a 2-session adventure, and I'd never played Call of Cthulhu deeply before. So marking the successes and the failures and then testing at the end of the section to see which skills went up, that was pretty interesting. Old Rollmaster, my favorite system to mention, was a point-based skill buying system. But what was the interesting twist was that when you leveled, what you got were the skill increases that you devoted your points to the previous level up process. And then you took your skill points from this level and you devoted them towards new skills and new improvements in skills. Those skills you would not get until the next level. So it locked you in. It said, what are you developing now? Rather than looking backwards and saying, what were you working on in the past X amount of time that you're in your player character's life? Oh, I happen to be working on climbing. I never saw you climb. I really like that. Third and last, I look at the overall skill mechanic and how it is done. I don't like it when skills are assumed or restricted by classes, at least not the majority of skills. We look at Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, I don't know what were there, 30 to 40 skills in the beginning books without expansions. Most of those skills were available to all the classes. Only a few were wholly restricted just to one or two classes. Another issue I have is when skills provide only a minor benefit over the untrained. That just doesn't fly with me. You don't take whatever limited skill selection you have during your character development or creation process to get 5% better than the average Joe Bob on the street. That was one of my major complaints with TSR's Advanced Marvel. You got one rank better for having a skill, and if you look at their 4C resolution chart, which I love by the way, one rank bought you on average 5% better chance to succeed. That's just not enough. Another thing I like to consider when I'm looking at a system's skills is the breadth of the skill selection. This isn't as important as the previous 2 points of class restriction and the amount of advantage that skills give, but it's still an interesting thing to note. I like systems with a large enough breadth of skills, but it doesn't need to be a 400-page listing of skills. It doesn't need to be 4 pages on a character sheet when you've listed them all. It certainly does not need to be that. But I guess to give an example, if a system said science as a skill, that is not broad enough. Biology, chemistry, physics, geology, now we're talking. That, while not extremely precise, at least gives flavor. Those 5 fighters that I mentioned before, in a pretend example, could have all picked a different area of science to be studied in, and that would give them all different roles and different effects on the game. Anyways, thanks very much. This is my first video response to a question out there. I look forward to finding more questions posed by other GMs and players out there and posting the responses and listening to some of yours. If you have a response that you think I would be particularly interested in, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. And the link to Red Dice Diaries original question is also down below.